Alright, so we're in Waverly Hall today, which is actually my hometown. And we're doing some exploring around out here. And I'm about to catch up with Brian and David and Cody. And Brian grew up here, and we're going to tell you a little bit about it and show it to you. Then we're going to go find more adventure. But it won't be on this one. This will just be about Waverly Hall.
Town's changed a lot. Used to be these buildings right here. That was the post office, which was a later addition, obviously. This used to be the feed and seed store, and later it became some other things. But I remember when that was a feed and seed store back in the 70s, and all this had an awning over it, which somewhere in the 90s or the late 80s they tore down. This was abandoned, and those down there were abandoned. But we'll get to those in a minute. Over there across the street in that empty lot, you'll see that old store right there.
Right.
There used to be a long wooden building there. There was a mill, but I don't remember, like, it was never a mill in my time. It was just an old wooden building, and the floorboards didn't go straight up and down. They went slanted, and it was big, wide floorboards. And during the 80s, a windstorm came through and just blew it over. There used to be a creek that went through there before my time. Up on this hill here, past what used to be the post office, there's a little hill there, and there used to be a house up there. And they tore it down at some point and built a car wash up there, and even the car wash is gone now.
Now this at one time was a train town, correct?
This was a railroad town. In fact, the walking trail you see here did not necessarily follow the tracks. This one closest to us here, I think, was added, but the one farther down was the railroad bed. And sometime in the late 80s, a lot of stuff happened in the late 80s or the early 90s, but the train stopped coming through. And actually there were stories that my brother and I heard. There was a great land grab because the railroad came through, or stopped coming through, and the landowners who the plots of land that the railroad had taken the land from when it was laid, were grabbing for the land back that the railroad was on. I don't know why, it was only like 20 feet, but I don't know a lot about that. I just heard that it happened. But yeah, the railroad stopped coming through, and somewhere in here there used to be a train depot. Waverly Hall actually had a train depot, and in the 70s, 80s, it was moved down that way and became like the Boy Scout Lodge, and somewhere along the way it got torched.
Such a shame.
Yeah.
Well, it's a shame to see a lot of, I mean, it's good to see that some businesses are, you know, reusing the buildings and trying to keep them historic in content, but
yeah, if you consider the difference between this and say charring, like night and day. I mean, they're at least trying to keep something alive. Waverly Hall is interesting because you know, you see a lot of old towns and they'll have a town square and everything operates around that square. Waverly Hall is a railroad town, and it's kind of laid out like a western town, complete with the buildings and with the awnings that used to be here. But when I was younger, a lot of these buildings were empty. But here we have what used to be who knows what, but became the side street deli. And they had the best French dips and the best buffalo wings imaginable. A lady had opened the business for her daughter to take over, but her daughter wasn't particularly interested in it, so eventually she closed it down. But side street deli. But in the 70s, all these buildings were just empty, and I remember one of these, and there was an old Coke machine in there and like just a bunch of junk. And they've done well with bringing them back. Down here, I love this because you can just see the age. This was the fire station, and they moved out of the fire station because it was crumbling. I mean, it was just like in bad shape. But you can see here these doors and these windows did not used to be here, and they did a really good job because you can't even tell where the big door was. But I can tell you there used to be a big door here. You can tell how good a job they did in redoing the front of this, because like those really decorative iron pieces up there, those are really neat. I like those a lot. They were always there, so it was under that they actually redid it. But there used to be a big door here.
You see the original roof in there too. With
Yeah.
the timber frame up there.
And I've been up there once. I think there is, yeah, the way upstairs.
Oh.
One iron staircase.
That's the only one for the whole building? Well, at that time, that was the only one for the building, or?
As far as in my recollection, that's all I ever saw.
You can.
This was a carriage house at one time. Look at the size of this place. It looked
Okay,
like it might
yeah.
have been.
You can tell right here where the front of the
Oh,
building
yeah,
was added
that's
onto
Yep, that's where they did it.
and
So,
remodeled.
yeah, they did it on just like a foot back, so everything on the front just looks brand new.
Any idea of where the origins of Waverly Hall come from?
Yeah, actually, and not from my great familiarity with this town, but from research in later years, Waverly Hall was named after the Waverly series by Sir Walter Scott.
But it's still. Well, this is Americana here. Fine.
Okay, so this is where, this whole section right here is where that old building used to sit. It was a big wooden building. It used to be a mill of some kind. Creek used to run down through here before my time. And the wind blew it over in a storm. And you can still see where the creek is. But like, I guess it actually went over this and there were legs going down or whatever. Yeah, sewer pipe. At some point they filled it in and just ran a pipe.
So-
they might have since it was a mill, they might have used hydroelectricity to run it, to power it.
Yeah.
Maybe through a stream, they might have had a generator or something hooked up to it.
Yeah, if there was a mill here, there would have been a creek to feed it.
Right.
And that explains where the creek went.
Right.
Is they put it in a pipe and it runs
Yeah.
under the road
Yeah,
when the
exactly.
highway was
And they
built.
stopped using the mill like long ago. Okay, so this used to be the primary school. I went to kindergarten, first and second grade in this building. The windows are new. They were old windows with little panes. And as I understand it, in the years before it was the primary school, it was actually a high school. And somewhere along the way it became primary school, but that was before my time. And I came here and got bad grades and got whoopings and studied sometimes. But now it's the city hall and the police station. And it's very interesting. It's the playground was out here. There were swing sets. There was a swing set over there. There's a merry-go-round out here. There's something right there. Who knows what that was? But over there, where it's now some buildings, businesses and stuff, used to be old houses. And we used to play at the trunk of a tree that was right over there at the fence line. The tree is gone. We used to play with little cars around the trunk of the tree, but it was a house right there. And we used to play like in the shadow of the house. And it's weird how everything changes. This was the cafeteria. My 6-year-old self would come in through that door right there. There's stairs on the inside coming down, and we'd come through this door. Funny, it seemed a lot bigger. And it seemed a lot bigger. That's where you would get the food. And we would sit in here, sit out there. I mean, it seemed gigantic at the time. And now it's like just this tiny slab. But this was where I had many a meal.